Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. I did not plan to keep a journal, but the nights turned longer after the power failed, and the act of writing gave me something to hold on to. My name is Daniel Reed. I teach physics at Ridgeview High School. When the first public warnings went out, we were told to shelter in place. 30 of us, teachers, parents who had rushed over to pick up their children, a custodian, and a school resource officer barricaded ourselves in the gym. The gym felt solid. Concrete block walls, a steel roof, 2 heavy double doors that could be chained shut. At first, we lived on vending machine snacks and cafeteria leftovers, and the building seemed like it would carry us through the first week. Then the power went out, and everything changed. This is what happened inside those walls. The first day, the gym looked almost normal. The basketball hoops were cranked up, the floor shined with fresh polish, and colored tape marked the lines for volleyball and badminton. We rolled out wrestling mats for sleeping and stacked bleachers to create a barrier along the lower doors that opened to the parking lot. Neil, the school resource officer, was calm and efficient. He issued orange traffic vests to the parents who volunteered to stand watch and used duct tape to mark off a safe path from the gym to the nearest restrooms. He collected every two-way radio he could find. 3 old family radio service handsets from the athletics office, and tested them on the lowest power to conserve batteries. He posted a schedule for quiet hours and lights out at 9 in the evening. For a moment, it felt like an extended storm drill. Our group had names and skills. I will list them because people deserve to be remembered for more than how they left. There was Melissa, the custodian with 20 years at the school, who knew where every light panel, breaker box, and storage locker lived. There was Sandra, a parent who ran a small neighborhood clinic who took charge of first aid with a backpack full of bandages, a blood pressure cuff, a thermometer, and a stethoscope. Coach Alvarez from the track program kept the kids busy with tasks, rolling mats, sorting bottles, and setting up a corner for quiet reading. 2 seniors, Chloe and Byron, became our runners because they were fast, quiet, and careful. I taught the others how to use the school's manual water valves and how to estimate remaining daylight by the color of the windows. Neil coordinated the security of doors and windows. For the first 48 hours, we told ourselves this would pass. By the 3rd day, the cafeteria stopped receiving deliveries. The district radio channel was silent, and a brown haze hung over the town from distant fires. The gym lights flickered and died late that night. Emergency lights, powered by sealed lead-acid batteries, came on along the corridors and in the exits. We learned their runtime the hard way. They dimmed after about 90 minutes and left us in darkness. Melissa scavenged the maintenance office for bulk packs of alkaline batteries and a box of 9-volt cells. We inventoried flashlights. We had 8 working flashlights and 3 headlamps. We established the rule that only 1 flashlight could be in use at any time unless there was an emergency. We posted a sign at the gym door. Light discipline, batteries are food. Water was our next problem. The city water pressure sputtered by day 4, and we had no idea if it would return. The school had 2 50-gallon electric water heaters in a utility closet near the locker rooms. I opened the top relief valve to check. They were full. I showed Chloe and Byron how to use the drain valve at the bottom with the garden hose to fill clean Gatorade jugs. Sandra boiled water in the cafeteria kitchen on one of the gas ranges. We learned the natural gas supply still flowed even after the main power failed. She ran a rolling boil for 1 full minute for safety, then let it cool in sterilized containers. We wrote potable or wash only on painters' tape labels. Hygiene mattered. If anyone got sick, we would have no clinic to send them to. Food looked plentiful on day 1 and small by day 7. The vending machines yielded chips, crackers, granola bars, canned coffee, and sports drinks after we used a spare key from the athletics office. The cafeteria walk-in refrigerator held trays of vegetables, fruit cups, and sealed milk cartons with dates that were still good. We counted meals. At 30 people, even 2,000 calories per person per day emptied our stacks quickly. Coach Alvarez proposed rationing. We settled on an initial plan: 1,600 calories for adults, 1,200 for teenagers, 900 for younger children, with 1 hot meal per day cooked on the gas range to improve morale. Sandra tracked allergies and special needs in a spiral notebook. No one liked the new portions, but no one argued the arithmetic. Noise outside the building changed over the days. The first nights carried sirens and occasional helicopter flights. Then it went quiet, and we heard something else: footsteps in the long tile hallways and the repeated click of a door handle, tried again and again. The gym created a false sense of safety because it was big and bright when we used our limited lights. But the corridors around it formed a maze. We walked them in daylight to confirm our barriers. The school's exterior doors had crash bars and narrow windows. We blocked the windows with wrestling mats and moved metal book carts against the crash bars. But we missed one set of doors by the science wing that could be levered open with a pry bar. We did not learn that until later. On the 8th day, a family of 4 decided to leave. I am not writing their names because I do not want their children to see them this way if anyone ever reads this. They were afraid that staying meant slow hunger. They had a small hatchback with half a tank of fuel parked at the far side of the faculty lot. Neil tried to convince them to wait until dawn so we could scout a clear path and post lookouts. The father insisted on leaving immediately. It was close to midnight. The emergency lights had long since died. We opened one gym door enough for them to slip out. We heard their footsteps on the pavement, a car door open, a starter crank. Then we heard their screams. We shut the door and leaned our weight against the bar. The building shuddered. No one slept. The next morning, we found a smear across the glass that was not paint. We said nothing because we had no new plan and because we had used up much of our courage. At this point, only 23 people remained. The gym became smaller when fear grew. Arguments began over little things: a missing granola bar, a longer shower than allowed, a flashlight left on. To reduce friction, we created posted rules and a duty roster. Every person had a job per 12-hour period. Day shift handled water collection, gas range cooking, trash management, and a 10-minute outdoor survey from the roof access hatch. Night shift maintained radio listening, door security, and a rotating 2-person watch at the gym entrance. We set quiet hours from 10 at night to 5 in the morning and banned off-topic arguments at the meal line. It felt authoritarian, but we were losing time to disputes. To keep communication clear without using power, I found the wood shop's hand tools and scavenged a sheet of plywood. I drew a large daily board with a pencil and a carpenter's square. It showed the date, sunrise and sunset from a printed almanac in the library, meal times, duty assignments, and a simple map with current blocked doors. The board went next to the gym entrance. People added small notes: save cardboard for insulation, collect more bleach, check roof drain. The board gave us a place to put our anxiety into lines and boxes. We had to become quiet. The infected outside responded to noise. We learned this from trial and error. On one afternoon, a toddler cried for several minutes, and we counted at least 3 shadows through the glass of the outer doors within 10 minutes. On a later night, Byron dropped a metal tray in the cafeteria and something began to knock against the double doors by the auditorium for an hour. Sandra assembled a quiet kit for the children. Foam earplugs for adults who needed sleep, soft toys, picture books, and a promise that anyone who kept their voice below a whisper would get first choice of fruit cup on Fridays. We learned to move chairs gently, to set down pots slowly, to clear our throats against our sleeves. It was not all fear. There were moments that felt like normal life. The kids played basketball with a half-inflated ball for 15 minutes after lunch. We allowed one battery-powered radio music session on Sunday afternoons at low volume with the antenna collapsed. Sandra ran a simple stretching class to prevent cramps. I taught an hour of practical science with what we had: how siphons work, how to measure volumes, how to read a mechanical pressure gauge, how to use a hand compass on the roof to locate the nearest water tower. Coach Alvarez ran a safety drill where we lined up by squads, counted off, and walked the team routes to the locker rooms and the kitchen with flashlights covered by red plastic folders to preserve night vision. The first big decision came on day 11: how to store fuel. Melissa found a roll-up door between the automotive class and the loading bay. Behind it were 2 portable generators rated at 5,000 watts and a stack of red 5-gallon fuel cans. The generators had not been used since the last storm drill in the fall, but they were clean. We had fuel for about 3 days of continuous operation at a half load for one generator. Neil argued that we should save the generators for urgent tasks, charging radios, boiling a large batch of water if gas failed, or running the walk-in refrigerator briefly to preserve what little was left. I argued that we should never run them inside because of carbon monoxide. We set the generator on the loading dock and fed power through a heavy-duty extension cord draped through a door jamb, with a rubber mat to prevent abrasion. We only ran it for 90 minutes at a time and posted a carbon monoxide alarm scavenged from the staff lounge, powered by a fresh 9-volt battery, inside the kitchen just in case. We also created a basic security kit that did not depend on ammunition. The school had no armory to draw from. We relied on tools and discipline. Melissa handed out heavy wooden broom handles from the janitor's closet, and we fashioned rounded tips by sanding them smooth. We taped flashlights to 2 of them with electrical tape as backup hand lanterns. The shop class contributed 2 framing hammers, a bolt cutter, and a handful of long screws. I added 2 physics lab stands to serve as door props. We found 6 old bicycle helmets in Lost and Found, which we gave to the front door watch. For shields, Coach Alvarez cut 2-by-3-foot panels from wrestling mats and taped them to the front of rolling garbage bins so that a person could push the bin and have a barrier. It looked strange, but when we practiced drills, people moved with purpose and without panic. On day 13, we heard a vehicle on the road below the school. It was the first engine sound in days. From the roof, I saw a pickup truck with a metal rack and 2 men in reflective vests. They drove slowly, stopping at each intersection. They spray-painted large arrows and numbers on the asphalt, then moved on. I waved with a fluorescent flag from the bandroom window, then froze when one of the men looked up at me and raised his hand, palm down, signaling to get low. He pointed at the tree line behind the tennis courts. I saw movement in the shadows, figures moving together, not quite running, not walking with normal rhythm. The men did not stop. They followed the road, yet their arrows led away from the school. The message was clear. The inside of our walls was safer than the road. We learned to collect rainwater. The school's flat roof had drains that fed downspouts on the west side. We cleaned 2 big plastic trash cans thoroughly with a bleach solution and parked them under the downspouts at the start of a forecasted storm. We covered the top openings with 2 layers of clean window screen held by rubber bands cut from bicycle inner tubes. The first storm filled 1 can half full, which gave us about 30 gallons of raw water. We boiled what we needed and treated the rest with measured drops of plain, unscented bleach using a medicine syringe. 2 drops per liter, mix, wait 30 minutes. We marked the treated water with a blue stripe of tape. This gave us confidence that water would not run out before food did. The second big decision came with the library. The library doors faced a corridor with windows to the courtyard. On day 15, we saw figures move inside the library, half hidden by shelves. The doors had glass panes. We did not know if someone else had forced entry and was now trapped or if the infected had broken in. We could not allow anything behind us near the gym. Neil developed a plan to clear it quietly. We taped cardboard over the door glass to reduce reflections. We stationed 2 people at the gym door to monitor sound. Neil and I approached the library with shields fashioned from the wrestling mats and a push broom with a long handle. We knocked softly. No answer. We opened the door slowly. Inside, the air carried a stale smell of carpet and paper. We moved through the stacks in a slow sweep. We found no people, only a broken window on the far side and footprints tracked in dust. We sealed the broken window with a plywood panel and screws. We took what we needed from the library: medical guides, a book on field sanitation, a printed almanac, a first aid manual with diagrams, and a world atlas to restore some sense of scale. Day 16 began with a new sound, scratching at the door to the science wing, slow and persistent. We posted rule number 11 on the board. No solo walks, always 2 people minimum. We also revised the door plan. We had believed the gym's exterior doors were the primary risk. The real weakness was the internal corridor from the science wing to the auditorium foyer. The double doors there were set in aluminum frames with glass panels, and the frames had a half-inch gap at the floor. If someone wedged a pry bar under the door, the frame could flex. We had missed that gap because we trusted interior doors more than exterior ones. We moved a set of stage risers to block those doors and screwed them to the floor using long wood screws and washers for grip. At night, the infected tested our seams. We could tell because of the marks on glass by morning and the way the handles were left at angles. Twice, the alarm on the kitchen carbon monoxide detector chirped quietly to announce a low battery. Both times, the faint beeping drew tapping from beyond the cafeteria entry. We learned to cover small electronic beeps with fabric to muffle them, or remove the batteries entirely and store the devices on a schedule so they would not chirp at random. It felt like playing chess against a board that moved itself. By day 20, only 16 people remained. Some had attempted to leave in small pairs during daylight, hoping to reach homes in walking distance. We tried to advise safer routes from the roof using our map and a hand compass. We watched 2 of them reach the first intersection without incident, then lost sight as they moved behind a row of buses. They did not return. Everyone left knew what that meant, but we still listened for footsteps that might be theirs each evening until we could not pretend. We stopped keeping the head count on the board. We now tracked only the number of people on duty and a line of small chalk marks near the water station for each day surviving in place. On day 21, we reached the last shelf-stable cartons in the cafeteria. Our daily calories had slid to 1,300 for adults. People grew quiet and slower. The children no longer asked for seconds because there were none. We still kept tea for mornings and saved 1 package of powdered cocoa for Fridays. Food now determined our timeline. We accepted that we would not last 10 more days without outside resupply. So we made a plan that had once felt unthinkable. We would search the school for overlooked supplies and then extend outward to the nearest structures within 1 block. We would work methodically, quietly, and return before dusk. We chose teams by ability, not by who wanted to go. We selected 2 3-person teams. Team 1, Neil for security and judgment, Melissa for keys and building knowledge, and me for tools and mapping. Team 2, Coach Alvarez for leadership, Chloe for speed and awareness, and Sandra for medical and calm. The gym would be defended by Byron, 2 parents who were steady but not strong walkers, and 3 teenagers who could follow instructions and operate radios. Our fallback signal was simple: 3 quick knocks on the gym door, repeated twice, which we practiced so everyone knew the rhythm. The first search took us down the service corridor that ran behind the auditorium stage to the band room, then to the art wing. We discovered overlooked resources that felt like treasure. The home economics room held a cabinet of sealed flour, sugar, yeast packets, and salt. We carried back 12 pounds of flour and a jar of honey from a classroom project. The art wing had boxes of cotton rags, masking tape, and utility knives with spare blades. The band room gave us a wheeled cart for moving loads, and 2 sturdy music stands that doubled as lightweight shields. The automotive room yielded a heavy breaker bar and a short length of thick rubber hose that we cleaned thoroughly for siphoning. We returned to the gym in under an hour, our breathing steady from focus rather than fear. We baked flatbread that night on a metal sheet over a gas burner, and the smell of warm dough lifted everyone's posture. That small success made us bolder. The next morning, Team 2 checked the nurse's office again with fresh eyes. In a locked drawer, they found 2 boxes of electrolyte packets, an unopened blood glucose meter with strips, and a digital thermometer with spare batteries. In a storage closet behind the stage, we discovered 2 cases of bottled water left from a canceled event. Each discovery bought us another day of reasonable calories and fluid. We logged everything, down to how many teaspoons of yeast were left, because arithmetic gave us control when the world felt chaotic. 2 days later, our search moved outside. We targeted the faculty parking lot and the maintenance shed near the football field because we could reach both without crossing open streets. We planned our route with the same care we used for labs. We waited until a light morning drizzle to mask our footsteps and odors. We wore dark, non-rustling clothing and wrapped duct tape around loose key rings and metal zipper pulls to mute noise. We checked the wind from the flag on the stadium pole and moved upwind so that our scent moved away from the school buildings. Neil carried the bolt cutter in a backpack to avoid its metal clatter. The maintenance shed held a set of long-handled tools and 2 plastic bins labeled Field Day Extras, which contained sealed peanut butter jars and crackers. We secured the bins with a cart and moved them back without incident. In the faculty lot, we searched for cars with small windows cracked to prevent greenhouse heat. Many were sealed, but one blue sedan had a back window left slightly open. Melissa used a plastic trim tool from the auto shop to gently pry the window further and slipped her arm in to unlock the door. In the trunk, we found a box of trail mix, a case of water bottles, and a wool blanket. We left a note on the dashboard in large printed letters: "Food taken to gym for survivors. Thank you." It felt right to acknowledge we had taken something that was not ours in normal life. Returning from the lot, we made our first serious mistake. We moved too quickly in the corridor outside the science wing, talking in normal voices because the drizzle had made us complacent. We rounded a corner and nearly collided with 3 figures moving toward us from the district office entrance. Their clothing was wrong for school. One wore a reflective vest, another a motorcycle jacket, and the third a hoodie with the hood pulled tight. They moved fast and without hesitation. Neil raised his hand to signal back, but the figures did not slow. "Back," he said calmly, and we did. We used our rolling garbage bin shields to block the hallway, and they hit the mats hard. Their faces were wrong. Pale, eyes unfocused, mouths half open with a low exhale. We held position, feet braced, and let the mats and the bin take the impact. Melissa jabbed a broom handle low to knock a knee away. The person fell without a cry, rolled, and stood again. We withdrew steadily until we reached the gym door. Byron and the others heard the code knocks through the wood and opened just enough for us to slip in. We secured the bar, slid the stage risers against it, and held the line until the hallway quieted. The incident taught us that our shields worked and that noise drew attention faster than distance protected us. With outside searches now a pattern, we extended our map one building outward every 2 days, only if the previous area remained quiet. We recovered wind-up flashlights from an emergency kit in the principal's office, 2 first aid bags from the athletic trainer's room, and a box of disposable rain ponchos that became valuable for heat retention at night. In the wood shop, we found a hand-crank drill and a set of screws, which let us reinforce a weak door frame without using power tools. Each trip was about movement discipline, control breathing, control foot placement, control noise. We never ran. Running led to less awareness and more mistakes. On the 27th night, we lost someone quietly. One of the older parents, Mr. Patel, had been holding up well despite knee pain. He went to the restroom during the early morning hours and did not return. We found him sitting on the floor in the hallway, leaning back against the cinder block wall with his hands folded. His face was calm. His pulse was gone. Sandra confirmed there was nothing to be done. We wrapped him in a clean sheet and moved him to the far end of the auditorium, which we kept closed and quiet. We held a short service during the day. People spoke in simple sentences about his kindness and fairness. We recorded the date on a page in Sandra's notebook and left flowers from the courtyard in a glass beaker. Death without violence was still death, and it reminded us of time's weight. By the 30th day, our numbers were 12. Food was again the limiting factor. We had stretched reserves with flatbread, rice from a pantry we had missed, and peanut butter, but the shelves were thin. If we stayed, we would watch our daily calories drop to unsafe levels within a week. If we left, we risked exposure. We debated quietly at the gym center court. The children sat in a circle drawing with crayons on cardboard. The adults weighed routes, distances, and known hazards. A town map from the social studies classroom showed a distribution center near the river where the highway split. We assumed it had been cleaned out by now. Another option was the small grocery on Maple Avenue, 2.2 miles away if we cut through back streets and avoided the main intersection. It had a loading door in the alley, which could give us a more sheltered entrance and exit if necessary. We settled on Maple Avenue, early morning, no heroics, 2 carts only, and total silence. We chose 6 people for the run. Neil and Chloe as the forward pair, me and Melissa as the load team, Byron and Sandra as the rear guard. Coach Alvarez stayed to lead the gym and keep a steady hand on routine. The instructions for those who remained were clear. If we were not back by noon, the gym would assume we were not coming and begin preparation for evacuation to the northern greenbelt using the route established from the roof, a drainage ditch that ran to the park. That plan existed since week 1, but no one wanted to say it aloud. Now we wrote it on the board because clarity mattered more than comfort. We left before dawn under a thin marine layer that softened sound. We wore gloves for grip, helmets, and backpacks lined with plastic trash bags for weatherproofing. Our radios remained off to preserve batteries and avoid stray noise. We carried a small pack of hand tools, a short pry bar, a screwdriver, 2 adjustable wrenches, and a length of paracord. Melissa wore the key ring for every door she could think of. Neil carried the bolt cutter. We moved in a line with 6 paces between each person. We followed the back of the campus past the greenhouse and slipped down the narrow alley by the auto body program where paint booths sat silent with their ventilation stacks still. The town felt hollow. Streetlights stood dark. A bus lay canted onto the curb with its rear doors open. We avoided it. An electronic billboard flashed a frozen advertisement about an upcoming charity run. No birds called. We crossed one intersection at a diagonal, using parked cars as partial cover. We watched reflections in store windows to see behind us. Twice, we knelt and waited while movement crossed a street farther ahead. The figures did not turn toward us. Their speed varied, some drifting slowly, others moving in quick bursts like they were drawn to something we could not hear. At Maple Avenue, we hugged the building fronts and went straight to the alley. The grocery's back door had a steel security gate. The lock had been cut cleanly before, the chain replaced with a thin one, and a padlock that could be opened with the bolt cutter. Inside the loading area, we found chaos that had long since cooled. Boxes scattered, shelves mostly bare. But there were missed items. People in a hurry grabbed the obvious. We found value in the corners and high shelves. A damaged pallet of canned beans where most cans were dented on one side, still safe if not bulging. A box of bulk oats with a ripped corner that we taped and sealed. A case of baby formula powder half hidden behind plastic crates. A forklift with its key still in, which we ignored. 2 manual pallet jacks we used to move heavier cases without starting the forklift. We worked in pairs and spoke only when necessary by using hand signals. When the loading carts were stacked, we moved out the way we entered. We did not check aisles or the storefront even though we wanted to. Curiosity was risk. Our exit went smoothly for 1 block. Then, as we passed the side of a closed pharmacy, a sound broke out near the front. A crash of metal, a can rolling, and footsteps that accelerated from 2 directions. Neil raised his hand, and we drew our carts off the center line to create a barrier, then reversed the carts slowly while facing the sound. Figures rounded the corner. They saw us and moved directly forward without speaking. We pulled the carts backward in a straight line to avoid jackknifing, 1 person guiding and 1 steering. Chloe tossed a plastic bottle 10 meters down the alley behind the group. The figures hesitated at the sound, then 1 turned, then 2. That was our opening. We slid down a narrow side passage between a dumpster and a brick wall, scraped arms, but made the turn. We did not run. We flowed. 10 minutes later, we reached the school fence line with our loads intact and closed the gym doors behind us. The return gave us 10 more days. It also taught us that we could do this, move, find, and bring back, if we controlled our pace. That changed the group's posture. People looked up more. We resumed the Sunday music session. The kids asked for lessons again and did multiplication on cardboard with stub pencils. We rationed the beans, oats, and formula carefully, and we designated 2 days per week for a small meal with higher protein for the children and anyone on door duty. Morale matters as much as calories. Day 34 brought a radio voice. It came at 10 in the morning on the weather band of a hand-crank emergency radio Byron found in the principal's emergency kit. The voice identified itself as a county operations desk working from a mobile command trailer near the river. The message repeated a pattern. If you are sheltering in place, remain in secure structures until notified. Safe assistance points are not yet established. Avoid large roadways. Report your group's location if you have clear line of sight to the river bridge. The voice pronounced words precisely, with no music or comfort, and then looped. It was both hopeful and frustrating. We could not see the river bridge from our hill, and even if we could, we had no way to transmit. Our 2-way radios were short range. I designed a simple code to acknowledge that we had heard them, even if they could not hear us. We used the marching band's large white boards and black paint to create a sign that we placed on the roof. It said, "Ridgeview HS-12 alive, food low, water okay." We laid it on the roof near the edge where an aircraft could see it, though we had not seen aircraft in weeks. We weighted it with bricks from the garden beds. It made us feel less invisible. At night, footsteps in the hallways grew more frequent. We tested our door braces and inspected screw heads. On a late night, a steady pounding shook the auditorium entrance, then stopped, then resumed at the science wing doors. It went on for an hour. We did not respond. Not responding was harder than responding. The point was to give no signal that a door led to people. The pounding moved away, then silence returned. We added rule number 14, do not knock back. On day 36, Neil asked me to help him reassess our evacuation route. He worried that we had become complacent. We climbed to the roof with the hand compass and binoculars. From there, we could see the drainage ditch to the north, the greenbelt beyond, and a cluster of single-story homes with fenced yards. The ditch connected to a culvert that ran under the road. If we had to evacuate, the culvert would keep us out of sight. But the culvert had standing water. We would need to walk single file on the side ledge with handholds spaced by rebar. We practiced on the school's concrete retaining wall with chalk marks indicating rebar spacing. We trained everyone to move slowly and never to push the person ahead. We also packed 2 lengths of rope with knots every foot for handholds if anyone lost balance. Training when you do not need it yet makes it available when you do. Our final crisis began on day 39. We smelled smoke in the morning that was closer than the distant haze. At first, we thought it was a small trash fire, but the sky went gray and the temperature rose inside the gym by noon. From the roof, we saw a line of small fires moving along Maple Avenue, likely from unattended cooking or tipped grills that had smoldered until the wind increased. The fire moved unevenly from yard to yard. A gust front pushed ash into the air. The school sat on a hill with a patch of dry grass between the parking lot and the road. If the fire reached that grass, it could sweep up to the building's west face. We had to prepare to defend the structure from embers or leave. We implemented a defensive plan. Our goal was to keep embers from igniting anything attached to the building and to seal interior paths. We shut all internal fire doors, removed flammable posters from walls, and moved cardboard and fabric away from windows. We filled every bucket we had with water and stationed them at key halls. We soaked mops and laid them along the threshold of the west doors to keep embers from blowing in. We turned off the gas at the main valve to avoid any flare-ups from inside. We assigned 1 adult to each child and instructed that if an evacuation order was given, the pairs would move together without questions along the chalked route to the culvert. We rehearsed once, silently, within the gym. The fire hit the slope at 4 in the afternoon. It moved patchy and quick, driven by wind, burning dry weeds and skipping over damp areas. Embers blew against the west doors and hissed against the wet mops. The smell inside was strong. We used wet cloths as simple masks for those with coughing. Melissa and I took turns on the roof with a long pole to dislodge any smoldering debris that caught in the gutters. Twice, small flames started in leaf piles near the loading dock, and we stomped them with wet mats. It was controlled until it was not. A larger gust blew sparks into the open gap where a downspout cover had rusted away. We saw smoke curl up the inner wall cavity near the cafeteria. There was no way to reach inside the wall. We could only watch the paint discolor. Neil looked at the smoke, looked at the children, and nodded once. We did not argue. He gave the evacuation signal, 2 sharp whistle blows followed by move. People moved in pairs, calm and steady, because we had rehearsed. The children carried small backpacks with a change of socks, a water bottle, and a bar of soap. Adults carried group essentials, a first aid kit, the radio, the map and compass, and our remaining beans and oats divided into even weight. We shut the gym doors behind us in sequence to preserve habit even as we left. We moved out the north exit, down the slope to the drainage ditch. The wind pressed ash into our faces. We kept our lips closed and eyes half open. When we reached the culvert, we switched to single file. I went first to set pace on the side ledge, leaning against the damp concrete, one hand on the wall. The culvert smelled of algae and cold stone. Water ran ankle-deep in the center, clear enough to see silt move. We covered 100 feet like this, then another 100, while the sound of wind became a constant roar. On the far side, we emerged into the greenbelt, a strip of trees and trail that ran behind a line of single-story houses. We paused in the shade to check the head count and adjust shoes. 12 people became 12 again, with the last pair stepping out. The smoke thinned under the canopy. We followed the trail north away from Maple Avenue, keeping houses on our right for orientation. We did not try to enter the houses. Our goal was distance. At a small footbridge, we stopped to drink and change socks for anyone with wet feet. Foot care mattered for movement over days. We camped that night in a small clearing that was invisible from the road. We set no fire and used no lights. We ate cold beans with a plastic spoon and half a flatbread each. We rotated watch in pairs, one awake and one resting upright, bodies pressed back to back for warmth. The children slept between adults, heads on rolled sweatshirts. Neil and I studied the map with the hand compass under a jacket to block any moon reflection, settling on a route that would take us along the greenbelt to a service road and then, if conditions allowed, toward the river, where the county message had originated. Travel would begin before dawn to maximize cool air and minimize visibility. We moved for 3 more days like this. We cut across backyards when fences ended, ducked under power lines, and detoured around open streets. Twice we hid behind hedges while figures moved along sidewalks nearby. We learned the sound of their steps, inconsistent but purposeful, as if they followed a signal none of us could hear. We found a small community garden with raised beds and harvested late carrots, kale, and herbs. We ate slowly, savoring clean taste after weeks of cans. We washed hands with diluted bleach water and watched for rashes. Small health rules kept us steady. Clean a blister immediately, rinse scrapes with treated water, change socks at midday, eat a little salt with water to avoid cramps. On the 3rd day after leaving the school, we heard a distant engine. We froze in the brush. The sound grew louder and steadier. A truck appeared on the service road, olive drab with a canvas cover, the kind used by road crews or emergency services. It moved at a careful pace, not fast, with a person standing in the back holding a handheld spotlight that was turned off. The truck stopped at a painted mark on the pavement. An arrow and a number like the ones we had seen weeks earlier. A person climbed down, scanned the tree line with binoculars, and raised a handheld radio to speak. We took a chance. Neil stepped out first, one hand up, the other holding the radio from our pack as a signal that we understood procedure. The person in the truck did not point a weapon. Instead, they raised an open hand and motioned us forward slowly, 2 at a time. We approached in pairs, names and ages ready. The people with the truck wore simple uniforms, with the reflective bands and cloth masks against dust. They spoke clearly and without drama. "We can take you to a temporary site near the river," one said. "It is not permanent housing. It is a staging area with water and basic food. We need your group to follow instructions and maintain quiet. We cannot guarantee safety if you wander. Do you accept?" We said yes. They asked for our names and any medical needs. Sandra explained our supplies and showed the list from her notebook. The crew nodded, wrote details on a clipboard, and waved us into the back of the truck in an orderly line. They did not promise more than they could deliver. That honesty felt like a blanket. The ride to the river site took 20 minutes. We passed checkpoints manned by people who looked tired but trained. The staging area sat on a concrete lot beside a warehouse with high windows. There were water tanks on trailers, portable toilets in neat lines, and a small tent with a red cross on a white tarp. People moved in quiet task loops, filling water containers, checking a logbook, cleaning surfaces. We were given a taped-off square of pavement to sit and rest. A volunteer brought each of us a measured portion of rice and beans and a cup of treated water. It was not luxury. It was structure. The children ate without complaint and then leaned against their parents with eyes half closed. We answered questions as a group during intake. How many had we started with? What had we learned about noise? What doors had failed first? What had we done for water? They wrote our answers on printed forms with boxes and numbers. I drew our gym floor plan and marked the weak doors by the science wing and auditorium. Melissa listed maintenance equipment that had helped us. Sandra provided a short protocol for boiling water and mixing bleach solution for sanitation. The intake worker thanked us and said this information would be used to advise other groups that were still inside buildings. Our weeks did not vanish into silence. They transferred to other people who needed them. We stayed at the river site for 5 days. There was a curfew at 8 in the evening. We lined up for meals twice daily and received a small breakfast in the morning. We washed hands at stations made from 5-gallon buckets with spigots. We were assigned a tent row and kept it tidy. The rules were clear and posted. Keep voices low, keep your area clean, report any fever or cough, and no lights after curfew. There were no promises of immediate relocation, but there was talk of small neighborhoods being cleared methodically, block by block, with teams checking homes and marking doors with chalk codes indicating checked, supplies taken, or inhabited. The codes were simple shapes anyone could see from the street. It felt like order was returning in precise squares. On the 6th day, a clipboard worker asked if anyone in our group had experience with logistics or record keeping. I raised my hand and said I tracked inventory for our group and taught physics, which trained me for precise notes. They asked if I would help count supplies at the warehouse and update a posted board each morning. I said yes. Routine suited me. Sandra joined the medical tent to help with first aid. Neil assisted with perimeter planning and taught a short class in quiet movement for new arrivals. Melissa worked with the maintenance crew and fixed a row of squeaking hinges that had been keeping people awake. The children were assigned small tasks, stacking empty containers, sweeping lines, and received a short class in basic knots, which kept them focused. Our first night under a controlled sky felt strange. I lay on the ground in a line of cots, listening to distant road noise and soft conversation. There were no pounding doors. There were no footsteps in tile corridors. There was the sound of a generator at low throttle far away, and the smell of treated water. I thought about the gym, the hammer marks on the doors, the chalk lines on the board, and the people we lost. I hoped the school would survive the fire and hold its roof over a gym floor that had become our small world. I knew I would be asked to share what we learned, and I was ready to give it without pride, because knowledge that might keep someone else alive should be simple and unadorned. On the 10th day at the river, a staff member gathered us in the morning and said there would be a convoy moving families in small groups to a larger temporary shelter at an exhibition center on the far side of the county. It had showers, privacy dividers, and a schedule for school-aged children to keep up with lessons. The staff member reminded us that this was not a return to normal. It was a longer-term plan for stability while teams worked to secure neighborhoods. We could accept the transfer now, or remain at the river site and wait for another chance later. We discussed it as a group and decided to go. We wanted walls again, and we wanted an organized place for the children to learn. Before we boarded, I asked for a marker and a piece of cardboard. I wrote one message to those who might come after us along the service road and taped it to the post near the intake tent. Ridgeview High School Gym. Water and heaters. Use bleach to treat. Quiet is safety. brace interior doors, move in pairs, keep a daily board. 12 of us made it to the river and then to shelter. You can too. I wrote it because I wished I'd seen such a message on our first fearful night. The convoy ride was quiet, with people looking out windows at streets they once drove daily. The exhibition center was as described. Large rooms divided into lanes, cots with blankets, a cafeteria with posted hours, and a table with coloring books for kids. There were also posted volunteer sign-ups. I enrolled to teach a basics class on water safety, simple physics demonstrations with common items, and practical math for rationing. We deserved more than just waiting. We deserved structure that built muscle memory and confidence. Weeks later, a field team asked me to revisit Ridgeview High to help them evaluate school buildings for use as interim shelters in other neighborhoods. They wanted to know which doors held, which ones failed, and where to place barriers efficiently. I agreed with one condition. If we reached the gym, I wanted to help gather our remaining notes and move them to this new network. The team nodded. We drove in a quiet vehicle with a clear windshield, following a posted route that avoided areas not yet stabilized. When we arrived at the school, the fire had licked the west wall but not eaten the roof. The air smelled of wet ash. Our roof sign remained, weathered but readable. Inside, the gym was dusty and empty. The daily board still hung by the door with the last date, a meal plan in chalk, and the word evacuate underlined. The marks we had made were the marks of any group, arrows, lists, and measured numbers. We carefully removed the board, rolled the mat shields, and collected our notes from the kitchen corkboard. We added them to the field team's collection for distribution. I stood at center court and looked at the wall where the sunlight came through high windows. It had been a good place to survive for a time. I think of the first night when laughter still lived next to fear, and the last day when we left without rushing because we had trained our feet to move quietly. We were 30 people at the start. We followed rules we made out of tape and chalk, and we held each other together well enough that 12 walked out and found order again. I write this for anyone who finds a gym, a church hall, a community center, or a warehouse and decides to make it livable. Test your doors. Protect your water. Keep light discipline. Move in pairs. Share the tasks. Treat information like food. And when it is time to go, practice once more, then go without noise. That is how we stayed alive long enough for help to see us. This is not a victory story. It is a record of what worked and what did not, in a place that gave us shelter until food became the clock. If you are reading this in a building that feels safe now, do not let the feeling of safety erase the need for procedure. Write your rules where everyone can see them. Count your calories, mark your water, keep shoes ready, and remember that quiet is not fear. Quiet is attention. We lived in a school gym until the food ran out. We left not because we were brave, but because we were prepared to walk when the fire made the decision for us. That was enough. And some days, enough is what you need. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.